Before our gospel reading, a little background. Last week, Pat preached his final sermon with us on the marvelous story of Jesus washing the feet of his disciples on the night before he died, modeling what it looks like to be a servant leader. After this, Jesus launches into what is popularly called his farewell discourse, a series of teachings that goes on for several chapters and includes famous passages like, "Love one another as I have loved you," and "I am the way, the truth, and the life," and "In my Father's house there are many dwelling places." And then Jesus and his disciples go out to a nearby garden, probably the Garden of Gethsemane, where he is arrested. And in the chaos, Peter takes a sword, strikes a slave of the high priest, and cuts off his ear. Jesus commands him to put away his sword, saying, "Am I not to drink the cup the Father has given me?" The story continues with today's gospel reading, John 18, verses 12 through 27. Hear the word of the Lord. So the soldiers, their officer, and the Jewish police arrested Jesus and bound him. First, they took him to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it was better to have one person die for the people. Simon Peter and another disciple followed Jesus. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter was standing outside at the gate. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out, spoke to the woman who guarded the gate, and brought Peter in. The woman said to Peter, "You are not also one of this man's disciples, are you?" He said, "I am not." Now the slaves and the police had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing around it and warming themselves. Peter also was standing with them and warming himself. Then the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teaching. Jesus answered, "I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in synagogues and in the temple where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who heard what I said to them. They know what I said." When he had said this, one of the police standing nearby struck Jesus on the face, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered, "If I have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Now, Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. They asked him, "You are not also one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" Again, Peter denied it. And at that moment, the cock crowed. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It's hard to judge Peter for blowing it so badly, for we know how easy it is to blow it, no matter how gifted, how favored, and how prepared we may be. If you followed the Olympics last month, you'll recall what happened in the men's figure skating competition. Oh my, The favorite to win gold was 21-year-old American skater Ilya Malinin, aka the Quad God. He was famous for being the only skater in the world to consistently land a quadruple axel in competition. And he had won every competition he was in for 2 solid years. He got to the Olympics and helped the American team win gold, but when it came to the men's individual skating, he was the last of 24 skaters to skate the long program. He got out onto the ice. He made his first jump, and then we watched his nerves get the better of him as he fell down not once but twice and ended up in 8th place. The look on his face when he finished his program was heartbreaking to see. "I blew it," he said. And even the commentators were in shock, and some of them were even in tears. Peter was a favorite. He was part of Jesus' innermost circle. He was an outspoken leader among the disciples. He had been ready to die with Jesus in the garden when soldiers came to arrest him. And to be fair to Peter, where is everybody? Where are they? The other disciples had run away. Only Peter and one other disciple were brave enough to follow along behind as Jesus was taken to the high priest's house. Apparently, and we have no idea why, that other disciple was a familiar face to the priest's household. So he was able to enter and able to get Peter in as well, at least as far as the courtyard. We wonder if Peter was brave enough to pull out a sword and fight when Jesus was surrounded by soldiers and there was no hope at all of saving him. Why is Peter afraid now? Perhaps back in the garden, he thought Jesus would fight, or at least resist being arrested, and he wanted in on the action. But now action does not seem to be part of the plan. And identifying with Jesus, who is now inside where Peter can't see him, is just too much. You are not also one of this man's disciples, are you? As if to say, well, we know your friend is a disciple, but his family and the high priest's family go way back, so he can come in, and if you're with him, you can too, but you're not a disciple too, are you? I am not. Thus says the man who has just a few hours earlier had his feet washed by Jesus himself, who had said to Jesus, "Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." And Jesus had said, "Truly I tell you, before the cock crows, you will have denied me 3 times. If you loved someone enough to lay down your life for them and they predicted your denial, wouldn't you then be extra vigilant about not denying them? Yet here he is. What a powerful, poignant reminder that no matter how much it feels like we have our act together, the most faithful, most solid, most loyal and courageous and wisest among us are vulnerable to blowing it. One verse that I have taken to heart for many years now is 1 Corinthians 10:12. If you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. And that is why, even though I am a very happily married female pastor who is at extremely low risk of sexual misconduct, I make sure that my office here at the church does not have a sofa in it, or really any seating that's very comfortable. Because I have heard too many stories of pastors who engaged in inappropriate behavior with parishioners on the sofas in their offices. As one of our parishioners likes to say, humans will human. And believing it will never happen to me is my first step off the path. Peter's story also demonstrates how denying Christ hurts us. It hurts us more than anyone. After his first denial, he is the one who is harmed the most. As Jesus stays true to his mission and calling while being grilled by the high priest and smacked in the face by one of the high priest's thugs, Peter slips further and further away. I have a lot of sympathy for Peter standing there at the fire. I hate being cold, hate it. And I would not have been able to stay away from that fire either. But that is also where Peter keeps running into trouble. The high priest's support staff are warming themselves and ask, "You are not also one of his disciples, are you?" Exact same question he got before. Here's a chance to redeem himself and get back on track, but no, I am not, he says. Finally, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off speaks up. "Oh boy, did I not see you in the garden with him?" And again, denial. At this point, a chill runs down our backs, for in denying Christ, we realize Peter's speaking the truth. He is indeed, in that moment, no longer following Christ. Then the cock crows, and Peter will have to live with what he has done for the rest of his life. There is a delightful musical called The Prom running at Topeka Civic Theater. It is the story of a high school girl named Emma, who also happens to be gay, and she wants to attend the prom and bring another girl as her date. This does not sit well with some of the parents in the community, so they plan to cancel the prom, just not have it at all. And after some pressure, they agree to allow the prom, and Emma is thrilled. She can't wait to dance with her girlfriend on the dance floor like everybody else. And she and her girlfriend, Alyssa, plan that this prom will be when Alyssa finally comes out to the rest of the school. The night of the prom comes, and Emma shows up at the school. Nobody else is there. The parents have planned 2 separate proms, one for everybody else and one just for her. Alyssa didn't know this was happening, even though her mother was the ringleader behind it all. So she doesn't show up for Emma, even when Alyssa finally realizes what has happened. She's too scared of what her mother and everyone else will think. Emma is the one who is humiliated, but she deals with it in a productive way by staying true to herself and recording a song about her experience. She turns her humiliation into a blessing for others and finds healing along the way. Meanwhile, Alyssa has to live with the pain of having denied what Emma means to her and of continuing to pretend to be someone she's not. Ultimately, Alyssa finds the courage to be honest with her mother and her community about who she really is, but she's really, really miserable until she does. In a similar way, we are the ones who suffer when we deny Christ in our lives. We do that whenever our lives do not match up with what we say we believe, whether through our actions or our lack of actions, through words that wound instead of bless, staying silent when we ought to speak, or misusing our resources of time, talent, or treasure. When the world asks the question, are you a disciple of Christ? There are all kinds of ways that our lives say either, yes, I am, or no, I am not. Well, just as Alyssa's denial of Emma is not the end of the story in The Prom, neither is Peter's denial of Jesus the end of his. The good news in today's story is that the story continues. Peter will have another opportunity to redeem himself at another charcoal fire when Jesus appears to his disciples for a third time after his resurrection. He will go on to be the leader of the early church, performing miracles, fearlessly preaching the gospel. He will survive being beaten and being thrown in prison. He will watch the church grow beyond anyone's wildest expectations. He will continue to learn. He'll make more mistakes. He'll need his mind expanded from time to time. And he will indeed lay down his life for Jesus when the time comes. How will the story continue for Ilya Malinin now that the disappointment of the 2026 Olympics are behind him? He has already received recognition for his good sportsmanship, for the way he promptly congratulated the gold medal winner and refused to be bitter or act like a victim. Maybe someday Malinin will win Olympic gold as an individual. Maybe he'll just become a wonderful human being. His story isn't over. And thanks be to God, ours isn't either. Thanks be to God that we are so much more than our failures, so much more than the moments when we blew it, so much more than the pain we have caused or received. May our lives declare and not deny that we belong to Christ. As individuals and as a church, may we face all our failures with courage this Lenten season. May we give them to God, trusting God to work through them and turn them into gold. I wonder what surprises, what new chapters God has in store for us. Amen.